No matter what your uncle tells you, beans are not the magical fruit. But is there actually a magical fruit when it comes to weight loss? We'll talk about that and more in this episode of The Sacrificial Pancake. For any of us who've tried to lose weight, we know that carbs are the enemy. And in particular, sugar is practically the worst type of carbohydrate you can put in your body if you're trying to lose weight. Because of that, it's only natural that those of us on a weight loss regimen are going to avoid sugar in any form that we can, including natural sources. After all, 70 grams of sugar from a cup of dried apricots is still 70 grams of sugar. But the good news is that you don't have to give up all fruits if you want to lose weight. In fact, there are a number of fruits out there that can help you on your weight loss journey, in addition to giving you much needed moral support along the way. Today we're joined with one of our staff health writers, Jace Jeffords, and between him and I, we're going to try to go over some of the most surprising fruits that most of you probably already enjoy and didn't know they can actually help you along the way to shedding unwanted weight. How you doing today, Jace?
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
how you doing today?
It's good to be had, I suppose. I'm doing well myself. Yeah. So this is an interesting topic because you're a pretty in shape guy. So have you ever found yourself needing to drop some pounds, or have you pretty much stayed a stable weight throughout over the years?
Well, as our loyal listeners can't see me right now, they can't tell how cut I am. But all jokes aside, yeah, I feel like I'm a pretty fit, very balanced individual. But it's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. So for those that might have struggled with keeping weight on or off, it's a never-ending part of your story, and it's something you got to continuously do on a daily basis, not just seasonally and things of that nature. That's where I find most people have the most difficulty is consistency. So it's something I learned through experience, through a lot of learning, through a lot of interactions and relationships. But obviously, the topic we're talking about today is just one of the simplest, but also I would say one of the most effective ways you can help to lose weight, and that's what you put in your body. So
that's right.
Let's talk about some fruits.
Yeah. And also, as an interesting side note, not only can you not see Jace, but for those who don't know him personally, he's a vegan as well. And so obviously he has less choice when it comes to the types of foods that he can eat. So it's always interesting to hear his perspective, especially on something like this. I know myself, I actually gain a lot more weight eating a vegetarian or vegan diet. But the more meats I eat, the better I do with my personal weight. So it'll be interesting to see your perspective on these, because I always have a hard time with fruit in my diet.
It's a very common problem whenever you make major dietary changes to go through a lot of fluctuations. So and the things we're going to talk about today, it's maybe not every fruit's for you, or maybe you've had successes or failures with certain ones, but hopefully our listeners can learn a thing or two about a couple tricks of the trade, and how to enjoy your diet while also at the same time losing weight. So it's really important. Something I think I'll touch on a lot is you have to enjoy these foods. Otherwise, you're not going to eat them.
That's right. Well, and that's one of the great things about this list is that most people enjoy fruits. And especially if you're on a diet, we know that restriction's the name of the game. And when you don't have to restrict yourself, then not only will that give you better results, but you'll feel better overall about the whole process. So why don't we get started? Now, we do have a list here, and the first one is probably going to be pretty surprising. It was pretty surprising to me at first, too, is apples. So, Jace, you want to go ahead and let us know how apples can help us?
Sure. So, good old Johnny Appleseed, and apples are one of the most common fruits, obviously, in many people's fridges and farmers markets. So, it's also something a lot of us don't eat enough of, I would say. Apples they're obviously very processed and a lot of other foods. So, for some people, they're kind of the basic fruit that there's better ones out there. For instance, a lot of people will stick with the passion fruits or your grapefruits or your grapes and so on and so forth. But apples are one of the best fruits for your health as well as for your weight loss journey because of that magic ingredient, fiber. So it's not just about sugars, which we often focus about. And for a caloric index, apples are right in the ideal range, low calories, high energy, really good fiber. So kind of a happy trifecta there. So they're around 100 calories each, and depending on the type and the size. But for the most part, the fiber is the key for that you're getting from fiber from apples. Sorry. So
okay. I'm from upstate New York, so we're apple country. We're actually, I think they grow more apples per capita here, or more per square mile than anywhere else. But up in the Great White North, what's your favorite kind of apple up there, personally?
We got a lot of Macintoshes. We get them all now, like the Fujis from overseas. A couple of the names escape me right now.
Mm-hmm.
What are the popular ones in your area, for instance?
The big one in the last few years is Honeycrisp.
Oh yeah, those are popular.
Yeah.
Golden Delicious, Honeycrisp.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two favorites at the pie season. So, green apples not so much. It's not a lot of green apple love where I come from, but nonetheless, still good for you. So.
Yeah. So that's nice because I think from where you are, you guys probably get a lot from Washington because I know they grow quite a bit up there.
Definitely,
Washington State.
California, Washington, mostly West Coast. Even some as far down south as maybe Texas, that kind of area.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly there's like the apple states.
Yeah.
Better than I would for sure. But a lot of them come internationally too. Mexico produces quite a bit as well as overseas.
Oh, really?
In Asia,
okay.
From what I understand. So more so oranges when we're talking about international sources, and for some people that's kind of one of the takeaways. They want to buy the local fruits,
right,
which is great, of course. But it also is limiting, because in your local geography, you can only grow certain types of plants. So it's really good to branch out, forgive the pun, and pluck fruits from other regions because they have a whole different nutritional package for you that could really change your health as well as your fitness. So in my case, like I mentioned, my favorite apples, the Golden Delicious is really popular. The Macintosh, it really doesn't matter in the end what type you're getting. It mostly matters on, whether it's a good source, a naturally grown organic apple is, always best if you can. Right. Try to buy locally as often as you can first, but if that's not an option for you, don't limit your purchasing options and seek apples from elsewhere or order them in because, again, a lot of grocery stores since the COVID-19 pandemic have widened their online varieties really well. So I know a lot of people, especially in Canada, where we don't have as many goods as you guys do down south, access to goods. So the common thing nowadays is buying your groceries online. Mm-hmm. So for apples, it's great to be able to pick different kinds and mix and match. And again, you have to be excited and enjoy what you're eating, especially with apples, because they can be quite boring in some people's eyes. An apple's an apple. Yeah. Heard that phrase many times. Yeah. So what is the difference? It also really depends on what you're going for. For instance, if you're diabetic or if you have any kind of health constraints or limitations, or let's say you're starting from the higher end of the scale and you want to really cut down, 50 or 100 pounds or more, you're obviously going to be consuming a lot different volumes and different varieties than people who are, maybe just using it to shed a few pounds or stay at an optimal weight, for instance. So never discredit your own personal story and your own personal goals that you're trying to achieve with weight loss, and that'll obviously shape your strategy and what kinds of fruits you're having, how much of them, when you're having them. Mm-hmm. But a simple rule I like to start off this podcast with, as we're talking about apples, variety is the spice of life. Mm-hmm. So try to mix and match a lot. The fruits we're going to talk about in this podcast are obviously a great starting point. Maintain a good mix of all these, but then continue to evolve and reshape your approach.
For sure. Now, the next one we're gonna touch on is one we almost didn't include because it's kind of an iffy one, especially for the reason that fruits typically are an issue, and that's grapes. And so grapes, this is the highest sugar content fruit we have on our list, and because of that, a lot of people rightly avoid them. And we would say for green grapes, that's probably a good idea if you're trying to lose weight. Now, red grapes, and the darker the grapes are, you get those really black grapes or even wine grapes, they're going to contain a lot of nutrients that are going to be excellent for weight loss. And so one of them is going to be resveratrol. And people know about resveratrol. It's been kind of a thing for that's at least decade or two as far as this wonder ingredient, the French paradox, how it's solved by the resveratrol in grapes and red wine. And it's true. Resveratrol is wonderful. It has been shown in a lot of studies to help with heart disease, to prevent blockages in particular. It's been shown to help aging in bodies and also to help with certain cancers. Now, the one thing we would say, though, is that grapes, while they do contain resveratrol, and again, we mentioned the darker the grapes, the more resveratrol they contain, but you're never really going to get a large amount. So you'll get a noticeable amount, and it's worth the calories of a handful of grapes to get it. But if you're really looking to load up on resveratrol, You can always take supplements, which have a much more concentrated form of it. Or if you want to have a little bit more fun in life, wine. And in particular, Pinot Noir has the highest amount, followed by cold weather Cabernet Sauvignon and Sangiovese, which is actually one of the main grapes in Chianti. And so if you like resveratrol and you like red wine, well, it might just be a match made in heaven. And for whatever reason, Pinot Noir grown in Hungary has the highest amount of resveratrol if you're keeping score at home.
Interesting. I've heard the same thing, to go back to apples. The highest fiber counts come from apples that are grown in more southern regions. So again, whether that's across the globe or that's just particular states or particular regions.
I didn't hear that. That's cool.
There's certain fiber contents that are higher in apples, such as like Macintoshes and the ones that are grown down south, warmer climates, obviously. So
when you say down south, what are you talking about?
Anywhere below
North Dakota,
the Canada line, pretty much. So that's why, again, in Europe, you might not find. There's still a lot of apples grown there, and Valencia oranges, and we'll get into oranges a bit later. But most of the apples that are grown in the more southern regions, the warmer climates, the more humid climates. That's just a generalization, but it's just an interesting point you made about certain regions and certain species of fruit. Certain genuses produce very particular nutrient packages. So it's obviously what we're after when we're talking about weight loss. So.
Right. And let's see, the next one we had on our list here was, I believe, oranges. So if you want to go ahead with that.
From apples to oranges. So they are not the same. It's not like the phrase apples and oranges. Not all oranges are made alike. For instance, we all know the mandarin oranges that come out every Christmas time. A lot of us get excited about those. They're tasty, they're delicious. But when we're talking about losing weight, well, eating 50 of those little oranges, because I imagine some of us have polished off an entire box ourselves over Christmas time. It's very easy to do. They're very tasty, and obviously they're very sweet. But there's an obvious disconnect there. Well, it's not always about the fruit taste, the fruit flavor, and even if you're talking about terpene content and the kinds of active compounds you're getting from different fruits. It's more simply the more bitter, the less sweet they are, probably the better they are for you. You could say that's a generalization, but in many cases it's true. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. So with oranges, you want to go for the ones that are really the larger oranges. The Valencia oranges are a great example. They're really high in potassium, vitamin C. Obviously, a lot of us understand that. Really large amounts of magnesium too in certain oranges. So they're great not just in juice form. Obviously, you can juice oranges. They go well. They pair well with almost any meal, I would say, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So oranges are one of the easier ones to fit into people's diets, and the one fruit that people are probably eating a lot of, just like apples. So yeah,
we should probably just avoid the juice, though. Especially with processed juice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I was going with my next point. Was if you're going to be consuming juice, try to include an orange in the smoothie to get the fiber. Again, fiber is really important for having a healthy gastrointestinal tract, as well as you want to mix it in with everything else. You don't want to just take the juice out and throw the rest out. There's even a lot of nutrients in peels. There is a contingency of people, maybe not a popular contingency, but that do juice and consume it's called whole fruit diets. So we're talking peel, we're talking pulp, we're talking everything. So obviously it makes people a little squeamish to talk about that, but that's for more extreme cases where people are seeking to make radical changes in their diet. Yeah. Perhaps if they're suffering from cancer or some kind of debilitating disease, they want to try and revolutionize their diet overnight in order to try and maximize nutrient quality. So that's more so the line we're talking about, but don't forget that there's a lot of nutrition throughout the entire part of the fruit. So do your best to stomach, especially with oranges. A lot of people don't like pulp. They buy the no pulp juice. They'll cut up the oranges, cut all the pulp off. It's really important that you eat all that material as well as the juicy fruit goodness, because we need to be able to get at the potassium, at the vitamin C, at the magnesium, all the micro macronutrients that are found throughout the fruit. So
it's interesting because when I was younger, we used to get just like Tropicana or whatever, the Simply Orange, that kind of stuff for home. But my wife, she loves fresh orange juice. And I never realized until I got older and I made it for her how many oranges are in a glass of juice. It would be like 3, 4, sometimes 5 oranges, depending on how much liquid there was inside. So that's,
definitely. It's not cheap if you're buying, a big bag of organic oranges for sure. And I know at my house we go through a lot, and sometimes I complain about how expensive fruit is, and that's something I think an underlying issue for a lot of these fruits we're going to talk about is why people don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. Well, the price is astronomical compared to what it used to be for our parents, even our grandparents' ages. So it's something we have to stomach. But in the end, it's a worthy investment, because when we're talking about a fruit like an orange that it has, on average, less than 9 grams of sugar in it, and again, getting good fiber, a lot of potassium, a lot of vitamin C, and these are, these micronutrients in their purest forms. So really, really good investment, and try and squeeze your own orange juice before and after a workout. I'm sure that'll be a topic of another podcast. Really good idea, and something obviously a lot of people are doing.
Right.
Oranges seem to be an easy one to convince people to include in their diet because they're already eating them or drinking them. So
right.
just again, my main takeaway is be careful that you're not only taking out the sweetness, the taste. It's all about the whole fruit idea. Try to make use. It's similar to hunting. If you ever have any hunting relatives, you use all the animal. You use every part. You don't want to put it to waste. Same thing goes for fruits, and that's my little vegan perspective coming out there, talking about hunting and fruits in the same sentence. Doesn't make any sense, but
yeah.
I hope people are picking up what I'm putting down when I say try to use everything you can, because there's nutrients in everything.
Right,
so.
and which is the reason I eat my oranges, and then afterwards I make a Negroni with the peel, because I'm a whole fruit guy.
Nice, like that's what I like to hear.
And so moving on, we have bananas. Now this is one that is another surprising one to have on the list, because they are very high in sugars. But the thing is that first of all, you have to define what a banana is. And for most of us in North America, it's what we call a dessert banana. Of course, there's different types of bananas, like plantains. That's another big one. Now, my wife is actually from Ecuador, and I spent a lot of time there over the years. And she actually was in the banana exportation business. So I kind of got a chance to see down and dirty how bananas, where they come from. By the way, bananas are a berry, and bananas don't grow on trees. It's actually the tallest non-tree plant. For those,
I've heard that. That rocked my world. I learned that a couple years ago.
Well, you must have had a very subtle world going on there.
Yeah, there's no banana trees.
It doesn't take much to rock it. So as far as bananas, what's interesting about that is that it really depends on when you eat them. So, Jace, have you made banana bread at home? Fresh banana bread?
Every week at least.
Yeah, and what's the best time to use the bananas for banana bread?
When they look like our grandparents.
Right.
Wrinkled, discolored. Sorry, no offense to elderly listeners, but we call it the grandfather principle for baking. Whenever the fruits are at their zenith for potency, all the flavors have coalesced, and it's time for they're overripe is a term a lot of people use. That's what I'd say is effective for any kind of cooking or baking.
And in Latin America, when even the plantains get really, really ripe, called maduros, and the old grandmas, talking about the old people, old grandmas would wait until they got just the most wrinkled, black, just disgusting, with all the flies going all over it, and that was the one they'd use for desserts, because it would roast it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it came out real good.
They look like they're past the point of rotting, and yet they're perfect.
Yeah. And the reason for that is because bananas or plantains or anything in that family, they are full of starch. And when they're green, that's why people use them in savory dishes when they're green. So we can think of tostones, we can think of mofongo, bolon, for all you Latinos listening. And these are used in that way because of the fact of how much starch they contain. And as they get older, as they get more mature, more ripened, and darker, those starches break down into sugars. Now, when they're greener, bananas have what are called resistant starches. And resistant starches are one of those things that, I'll be honest, I didn't really know anything about until maybe 6 months ago or a year ago, in which these are the types of starches that your body cannot process. And so not only does the majority of these resistant starches pass through you undigested, but along the way, the bacteria that live in your gut actually feast on them. So it works out double. So not only do you get free calories, but your biome inside of your intestines gets a nice little boost. And so it works out nice that way. In fact, there was a 2010 study I wanted to mention here where they took obese type 2 diabetics and they wanted to see what sort of effect larger amounts of resistant starches would cause. And by the end of that study, not only did just about everyone see lower body weight overall, but that their insulin sensitivity went down, which basically that's what type 2 diabetes is. You've gotten to the point in your life where your body can't react to insulin the way it used to. And so, or it can't produce it. And so, and because of that, having more insulin sensitivity is the best thing you can hope for. Now, we can't say it cured diabetes, and we're not at that point yet, but it's certainly definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's like what I've read a lot of studies about bananas and coconut sugars. So coconut-based sugars, those seem to be two of the most effective for diabetes, whether you want to say treatment or management.
Management,
so
yeah.
I've heard a lot of good things. Yeah, rice sugars too. Anything derived from, some kind of alternative sources where then obviously the typical cane sugars. So
yeah, for sure. And then as we go on, actually you mentioned before grapefruit. Well, you already mentioned oranges too, but why don't you go ahead, Jason, and let us know what's the deal with grapefruit?
So grapefruut is probably one that people are really familiar with. It seems like I get all the familiar ones, so that's okay. Grapefruit is, the grapefruit breakfast is very common practice in North America, the U.S. in particular. Having a grapefruit for breakfast, it's a great way to start your day. It's not necessarily the most filling thing in the world, but a lot of people are satisfied with, maybe a little sugars sprinkled on top. It's a very good energy boost, really good for your metabolism. It can really help people lose weight too, which a lot of people have stuck with grapefruit for because it's, again, a smaller breakfast, but something that helps you to feel satisfied, fulfilled, and energetic to start your day. So it's kind of a backwards mentality, and this isn't just the vegan speaking, but having really
It's
really
always the vegan
rich
speaking.
protein, really high protein diets in the morning, such as the bacon, the eggs, the potatoes. Those are really satisfying and delicious and what have you, but they're also kind of useless for you to start your day on. It's almost like you're weighing your body down with all this weight and these difficult to digest items. So that's why fruit is one of the best breakfasts, and it's not just something that it's no secret. A lot of healthy people eat just fruit for breakfast. Maybe a couple grains here and there, healthy, lean grains. But for the most part, the grapefruit breakfast is a safe bet. And the reason why is because the AMPK, I'm not going to try and pronounce the full name of this compound, but it's a compound that was clinically shown to increase your metabolism, especially in people who consume it regularly. So in a 2005 study, there was a group that consumed half a grapefruit. Again, that's the typical breakfast, half for breakfast, half for lunch. So one grapefruit over the 3 to 4 hour period. Before each meal, and they lost 5 times as much weight as those who didn't have any grapefruit. So that's just a dead giveaway.
Wow.
The grapefruit is not only a great source for energy, but it's really good as a metabolic booster. And it also has this similar effects on your energy as caffeine. Again, without the jitters and obviously the addictive qualities that caffeine can have. So it kind of has that twofold approach where it's giving you a good boost. It's very low in sugar, as many of us know. It's very bitter tasting. So again, there's that subtle rule I hinted at. If it doesn't taste the greatest, it's probably really good for you in certain ways.
Because it tastes healthy?
Exactly.
That's usually not a compliment.
It's a good phrase. No.
This tastes really healthy. Thank you for these keto cookies.
Where it's like my old buddy Dr. Steve Brill says, for your health. It's for your health. It's not for your enjoyment. But the thing about grapefruit is, and all these fruits we're talking about, you can enjoy them. There's multiple ways to enjoy them. For instance, myself, I like bitter tasting things. I'm not averse to, how things taste necessarily. That's not a big dead giveaway for me. But I still make everything into a smoothie. It's just the easiest delivery method. You can mix and match. You can add a whole bunch of other goods and really make it the most nutritious part of your day. So for me, it's breakfast smoothie every day with all these fruits we're talking about in different combinations. So if you find you struggle with, you're not satisfied, you don't enjoy this as much, and again, enjoyment's a big key of it. Try to mix up how you consume these fruits. Just try sprinkling a little bit of coconut sugar or banana derived sugar, or some non-processed sugars on your grapefruit. Just a little bit is not going to kill you, and it helps you to be consistent, and because that's one of the biggest things here when we're talking about fruit is consistent eating of these fruits throughout your diet. So whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Yeah, and if you're really trying to watch those calories big time, monk fruit extract seems to work best.
Oh, yeah.
The stevia and some of
That's really good stuff.
and like stevia and Splenda and some of those, they don't work out as good. But yeah, monk fruit tends to work out pretty good on things like this. And now speaking of other sweet fruits, kiwi. What do you have to say about kiwi?
Well, I honestly didn't eat them a lot in my younger days. I found the whole ritual of cutting it in half and trying to scoop it out, it was sounds quite lazy for somebody who's a very active person, but
you were a scooper.
Nonetheless, I was a scooper.
Okay.
I never,
Not a
again,
peeler?
I wasn't a whole fruit practitioner back then, but obviously now I'm practicing what I preach, and I eat the whole thing, peel and all, fuzziness and all. Obviously, give it a good wash, but I've heard a lot of friends that have had success with, again, the whole fruit diet. That's where I learned. A lot of my experience comes from Colorado, a little bit of California, and then Canada. So I learned to get over my taste preferences and just get the most out of the food you're eating. And I've got the most out of my life since doing that. So so for me, kiwis were a weird one. The fuzzy little brown fruit, I didn't buy too much. Not to mention they're quite expensive in my experience. But I wanted to hear what you had to say about all the micronutrients contained within them. And they're obviously jam-packed little pieces of fruit. So
Well, yeah. Well, what I find interesting is how they can affect your blood sugar. Now, in your case, when you're eating the whole kiwi, that's definitely going to do it because you got a lot of extra fiber in that. But as far as what was I going to say here? But as far as the actual blood sugar issue, now, what's interesting is that I would typically eat kiwi for breakfast, and I would typically see it with less healthy items. So like pancakes and like a Sunday brunch type thing with slices of kiwi in there.
Or fruit salad.
Yeah, or fruit salad. But one thing was neat was there was a 2017 study, and it showed that kiwi could raise your blood sugar a little bit, but it actually helped to keep your blood sugar in check when eaten with other foods that were high in carbs. And so they said there was actually 20% less rise in blood sugar after eating a meal if kiwi was in it. And I thought that was kind of neat. So even though it's high in sugar itself, it actually helps you keep your blood sugar down. So it decreases the glycemic index of your pancakes or whatever else you're eating with that. So, I mean, I wouldn't recommend, eating a whole bag of Twizzlers and then, eating a little bit of kiwi, but it helps out.
Yeah, unfortunately, our health doesn't work with the point-counterpoint, cause and effect like that. It would be great if we could just balance all the bad with good and we'd be fine.
Yeah.
But it's a good point. There's definitely a problem with a lot of these fruits only existing on unhealthy, alcoholic beverages, fruit salads with additional sugar dressings on it, pancakes, waffles, you name it. So again, going back to my very preachy but very solid thing about consistency, and it's all about how you eat it. Have fun, but find a happy balance between your taste and your enjoyment with also what are you trying to get out of these fruits? What is your ultimate goal? And for many people, it's to lose weight and to just optimize themselves. So just remember that.
And to wrap up our list here, let's just mention an honorable mention, just because this is a fruit that not a lot of people have access to on a regular basis. It's passion fruit. Or maracuya, depending on where you're getting it. And you can get passion fruit flavored things all over the place, but actually getting straight up passion fruit isn't always something that's all that easy to get. I'll tell you, I again, going back to my South American days, this is one of the class of fruits I'd call the monkey brain class of fruits. There's like a whole bunch of fruits down there that you don't necessarily cut up or peel like you would for most fruits that we think of in North America. You would actually cut a hole in the top, take the top off, and inside of it literally looked like just brains. And what they were is seeds with a juicy flesh around it. And I guess the closest thing I can compare it to would be a pomegranate. It
looks like a pomegranate.
Yeah, but it's like a little slimier. The seeds are smaller, and they're absolutely delicious. And people go crazy for passion fruit down there. And so the reason we bring that up, there was two things about it. First was massive amount of fiber. So if you can get your hands on actual passion fruit, not just something flavored with passion fruit, there is more fiber per calories than just about any other fruit that you can eat. So this tremendous amount of fiber really acts to counteract the amount of sugar that you're consuming. So it helps to keep your blood sugar down. And also there are compounds within the seeds itself that are being tested to see the connection between blood pressure, high blood pressure, and insulin sensitivity. So good stuff all around. Jace, thank you so much for your time and for your expertise. And
thank you very much for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, what's your favorite fruit that we talked about today?
The best for last. I have a real passion for passion fruit. Again, it's the one like you said it, I've struggled to get. There's only one store where I live in Canada that can get it for me. And again, I'm paying a pretty penny, but man, do I pay it. It's delicious stuff. I've had a lot, again, in the States. It was a lot more accessible. And you've obviously been to the source.
The source of all
compared to
passion
myself.
fruit.
So I would love to get down there and eat some fresh passion fruit because it's one of the top, not only the top tasting, but like you said, the micronutrient profile and the fiber and the healthy sugars, and it's really, really good for your glycemic index as well as your metabolism, as well as any gastrointestinal issues. I know there's been some studies on passion fruit extracts being used in certain medical treatments. So there's a lot of goodness packed into these fruits, like you said perfectly there. So
very good.
So if you want, next time you're going to the South America, if you want to smuggle me up a couple boxes, name your price.
Sounds good, Jace. So we'll look forward to seeing you on future episodes.
Sounds great. Love to be here, and I appreciate the time and fun talking fruits with you.
And thank you for all of you for listening to the Sacrificial Pancake. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. This has been your friends at Verloda wishing you good health.